Hi there. Good morning.
I just wanted to know what prompted you to get back in the car after you were crew chief for Alexis DeJoria.
I don't know what that was. Podcast, I think. All right, go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name's Nahum. I'm going to be refuting against Justin's claim, which was America's healthcare costs are too high. His secondary claims are, number one, that the United States spends the most on healthcare in the world, but does not meet in the same standards as a first world nation. Number two, that there is a high cost in hospitals and a lot of variation in hospital prices for different regions in the U.S. And number three, that the cost of pharmaceuticals in the U.S. is higher than in any other nation. First of all, to respond to his first claim, which was that the U.S. spends the most, yet does not have the same standards, is that according to the study that he presented, the United States ranks last amongst 10 nations, and the 10 nations are Australia, Canada, France, Germany, the UK, Netherlands, Sweden, New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland. The United States apparently ranks last, and even though we waste the most on healthcare. However, this does not take into account many variables, as in why the United States spends the most. According to the same source that the advocate used, which was the Commonwealth Fund, the United States spends the most, and it also offers the most advanced technology and research that can be offered. Another claim that the advocate said was that the United States ranked last, and the same research that he had, which was the Commonwealth Fund, also said that the United States ranked last in 2007 as well. However, in that same year, according to the National Center for Policy Analysis, the U.S. women cancer patients had a 63% chance survival rate for 5 more years compared to 56% of European women. For men, 66% had a chance of living 5 more years compared to 47% of European men. So even though the United States ranked last for research for perhaps advanced illnesses, the United States was highly ranked compared to Europe. For number two, it is illogical to compare how much other countries spend compared to the United States, since the United States is larger than Australia or Germany or the UK. According to the CIA World Factbook in 2014, the United States population is 318,892,096 compared to the UK, which is ranked number 1 in the data for the best hospital care, which is 63,742,976. Therefore, the analysis is not matched because it's obvious that the United States is going to waste more. Also, even though the United States was ranked last, many people still travel to the United States for medical care. 38% came from Latin America, 35% from the Middle East, 16% from Europe, 7% from Canada, headed to the United States, which is considered medical tourism. In response to his secondary claim that there's high costs in hospitals and a lot of variation in hospital prices, there's not really a claim that he is stating. That's just a fact. That obviously some places are going to have different prices depending on the need of people. So there's not really nothing to compare there because it's just a fact that was given. Moving on to his third secondary claim, that the cost of pharmaceutical generic drugs is higher in the U.S. than other nations. The advocate claimed that the United States has raised prices for generic drugs due to companies merging in order to not allow much competition. Therefore, they can raise the prices and force people to pay that price. Even though he states this, he does not present proof or provide evidence. He didn't provide any sources, so there's a hasty generalization there. He just stated the fact. I looked over his outline. There's no evidence that says it, so there's not really much Not really much right there, because for all I know that he made that information up. He didn't list his sources or anything. Also, the advocate claimed that the United States generic drugs cost more than in France and the UK. Even though this may be true, he does not explain why this occurs. He only gives factual data. According to the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, this occurs because the higher drug prices in the U.S. reflect the country's higher per capita income. Therefore, since according to research, United States people gain more in wages, that's why the generic drugs cost higher. It's not really because it's better in somewhere than somewhere else. Therefore, Justin's claim that America's healthcare costs are too high is not really based on data. It's more of facts that he's stating. There's not really much an argument going on there. So, thank you. That's it.
All right, structural stuff is all fine. You lay out the secondary claims pretty clearly. You respond to the first and third point very directly. On the first point, you basically challenge the way the information is being used, that it ignores the advanced technology that we use, the size of the population that we have here, and that would make some of those comparisons less legitimate. I think those are pretty reasonable arguments. The argument about potential medical tourism is an interesting one, but you don't really explain how we should use it in this argument. If we're getting people coming from other places, including 16% from Europe, which is where some of those countries were that were listed on the list ahead of us, that would seem to suggest that there is something desirable about our medical system, and I think that's the argument that you want to be making there. In some of your comparisons, I thought you had good presses, but you also have a tendency to accept the premise that they are saying that the ranking is appropriate, or that we're wasting money. And I think that you want to be a little bit careful about the phrasing on some of those points. On the second point, you basically say, look, there's no inference being drawn from this, so you're not even going to bother arguing it. I guess that's okay. Look, there are variations, but the question then becomes, so what? So we have the variations. What does that mean? The advocate doesn't tell us that that's a bad thing, that there's any harm that occurs from that, and the only potential harm that might be suggested is a value argument, that that's not fair, but that's a value claim, not an issue of fact that's in dispute. On the third point, on the cost of pharmaceuticals, I thought you had a good response suggesting that it's really related to the income of the people in the countries more than anything else. That seems reasonable to me. All right, let's go on.